They say a second marriage is a chance to get it right. That's what I told myself when I married Greg. I was 51, seasoned by life, but still hopeful. Greg was 56, charming, in a way that disarmed you. We lived in a cozy brick house in a quiet Michigan suburb, the kind with manicured lawns and neighbors who waved but never pried. It was supposed to be my safe place, my fresh start. My daughter Emily from my first marriage had just turned 22. She was headstrong, brilliant, and had that restless fire I used to see in myself. After graduating from college, she moved back home, just for a few months while she figured out her next steps. She and Greg had always gotten along too well, I see now. Back then, I was just grateful they weren't at each other's throats. Life had a rhythm. I worked part-time at a floral shop I adored, while Greg worked in consulting, mostly remote, always busy, glued to his laptop. Emily was in and out, meeting friends, job hunting, occasionally helping with dinner, when she felt generous. From the outside, we looked normal, functional, maybe even happy. But then came the little things. Late at night, I'd hear murmured voices coming from the den. Greg and Emily laughing over some inside joke. He's just being a supportive stepdad, I'd tell myself. Once I knocked to say goodnight and found the door locked. Greg opened it a few seconds later, smiling too wide, Emily on the couch with a blanket over her lap, and her phone clutched tight. I remember blinking at the scene, stomach tight, and Greg saying, "Just watching some dumb Netflix show." "Want to join?" I said no, and I let it go. Because I trusted them. Because I didn't want to be that woman, jealous, paranoid, reading into shadows. Then came the day everything snapped. It was a Thursday. I had come home early from work because the shop's cooler broke down and we had to close. Greg's car was in the driveway, but the house was unusually silent. I crept in, quietly. Not out of suspicion, but habit. I heard nothing but the faint hum of the dryer. I headed to the bedroom to change out of my uniform. And that's when I saw Greg's laptop on the bed, open screen, still glowing. I didn't mean to snoop. My intention was to close the lid, but something stopped me. A message notification pinged in the corner. "I still taste you," from last night. From Emily. My breath caught. I clicked. It opened a full thread, weeks, maybe months of messages. Explicit, detailed, disgusting. My daughter. My husband, behind my back. In my home. Like I was a fool asleep in the next room. The room spun. I couldn't think, couldn't breathe. I clutched the headboard like it would keep me from collapsing. My hands shook as I scrolled. Photos, nicknames, plans to be together once I was out of the picture. I felt like I was watching someone else's nightmare unfold. They got home half an hour later together. Greg walked in with groceries, Emily trailing behind him, laughing about something. They froze when they saw me in the living room holding his laptop like a smoking gun. I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I looked Greg in the eye and said, how long he didn't deny it, didn't even blink. Just dropped the bags on the floor and muttered, "It's not what you think." Emily didn't speak. Her face was pale, lips trembling. I laughed. That dry, humorless laugh that sounds more like a scream trying to claw its way out. "You're both disgusting," I said. And that's when he did it. Without hesitation, Greg said, "Maybe it's time you left. This isn't working anymore." Just like that. Like I was the intruder in my own life. Emily didn't stop him. She didn't look at me. Just stood there, arms crossed, siding with the man who used to call her his stepdaughter. I grabbed my purse, my keys, and nothing else. I didn't cry. Not yet. I just said one thing before I walked out that door. I didn't scream. I didn't fight. I just walked out. And started planning. The motel smelled like stale coffee and disappointment. It wasn't much, one room, a creaky bed, and a leaky faucet, but it was mine. After 12 years of building a home with Greg, I now lived above a gas station with paper-thin walls and a flickering lamp. And yet, for the first time in months, I could breathe. No pretending. No betrayal under my roof. Just silence. And a fire in my chest I hadn't felt since my 20s. I didn't spend the first night crying. I sat at the desk, opened my old laptop, and began to plan at 6 a.m. At 6, I sent a message to someone I hadn't spoken to in years, Tracy Monroe, a sharp, no-nonsense woman I met in college. We were both poli-sci majors, but Tracy went the law route, and last I heard she ran her own firm downtown. Her response came within the hour. "Meet me at noon. Bring everything." So I did. I walked into her office with a grocery bag full of documents, marriage certificate, bank account statements, tax returns, even the deed to the house. She listened in silence as I told her everything, from the first locked door to the final slap-in-the-face eviction. When I got to the text messages, her jaw clenched. "He kicked you out of a house that's legally half yours?" she asked. I nodded. "Worse, I paid for most of it." Tracy's eyes narrowed, and that's when I knew I wasn't just a sob story to her. I was a case she wanted to win. We started digging. Every night after my shifts at the flower shop, I came back to the motel and combed through files. I found the receipt for the $120,000 inheritance I used for the down payment. Old emails between me and our realtor. Bank statements showing the mortgage was drafted from my account. There, it was a paper trail of ownership Greg probably assumed I'd forgotten. But I hadn't. I remembered everything. I also remembered the passwords. Greg never changed them. I logged into our old shared cloud account and downloaded every photo message and document I could find. I didn't want revenge. I wanted justice. And I wanted it clean, legal, and devastating. Tracy filed a preliminary injunction to freeze any activity on the property. Greg wouldn't be selling the house or refinancing it anytime soon. Next came discovery. Tracy subpoenaed Greg's financial records, and that's when things got interesting. Turns out Mr. Consultant hadn't paid taxes in 2 years. He had credit card debt hidden under a business shell, and multiple Venmo payments marked suspiciously vague MySC services, dinner. Thanks again. We weren't sure what they meant yet, but Tracy had her theories. I kept my distance. Greg didn't contact me. Emily didn't either. That was fine. Let them believe I was licking my wounds. Let them think they'd won. The truth, I was watching them burn from a front row seat behind tinted motel windows, with receipts lawyers and righteous rage. One night, after another long day reviewing records, I caught a news segment in the motel room. It was about women starting over at 50 divorces, betrayals, second careers. The anchor smiled as she said, "They didn't fall apart. They rebuilt." I turned off the TV and whispered to myself, "Damn right we do. This wasn't about heartbreak anymore. This was war, and I had just found my weapon." I was folding laundry in the cramped motel room, because even when your life falls apart, socks still need pairing. When it hit me, that house, the very one Greg tried to shove me out of like I was some clingy ex, I bought it. Well, not entirely, but close. When my mother passed, she left me everything. It wasn't a fortune, but it was enough to cover 80% of that house. I remember Greg praising me back then, saying how proud he was that I built our home with my own hands. I had shrugged off the praise, just glad we had a roof over our heads and a place for Emily to grow up. But now, that detail wasn't just sentimental. It was everything. I dropped the laundry, opened my laptop, and started digging. I logged into my old Gmail account buried under newsletters and junk, but it was all there. The email from the bank confirming the wire transfer from the estate account to the real estate attorney. A message from the title company listing me as the primary buyer. Another from the realtor congratulating Ms. Dalton on her purchase. Not Mr. and Mrs. Dalton. Me. I forwarded everything to Tracy with the subject line, "Found gold." Her reply was immediate. "This changes everything." We got on a call that night. Her tone was different, sharper charged. "You're the majority stakeholder in that property. Depending on the wording in the deed, we might be able to push for sole ownership, especially if we forged any documents to sell or remortgage it." I remembered a drawer back home, top shelf of the filing cabinet in Greg's office. That's where we kept the hard copies. Problem was, I no longer had access to that house. But I had access to something else, his ego. Greg never cleared out our shared Dropbox folder. And lucky me, he had scanned everything for backup. I scrolled through hundreds of PDFs and found it, the deed. My name first. His added later. Tracy confirmed what I suspected. He's listed as a secondary party, not joint tenant. That means you can file for partition or even claim misrepresentation if he acted without your consent. I stared at the screen, bile rising. He'd used me, married me, played house, and now thought he could kick me to the curb like I was a stray cat. But this time, I had claws. Tracy filed a motion to assert sole ownership pending fraud investigation. That would freeze any sale, any transaction, even evict him if needed. She attached my documents, emails, wire receipts, everything. All neat, legal, airtight. A week later, we got a call. Greg's lawyer. Some smug, overpaid guy named Peter wanted to negotiate. Tracy grinned on the phone. That means he's sweating. Good. Meanwhile, I received a message, not from Greg, from Emily. Why are you trying to ruin everything? He loves me. You're bitter. Let us go. I stared at it for a full minute. Then I deleted it. No response. No rage. Just silence. Let them rot in the mess they made. My focus was on the house, the truth, and the legal checkmate I was setting up piece by piece. Funny, the smallest details, the forgotten ones, are the ones that end wars. Greg forgot who paid for that house. He forgot I was the kind of woman who files receipts and remembers conversations. He forgot that behind my quiet, polite smile was a mind built to remember what mattered. He forgot the most dangerous thing of all: I wasn't finished. Not even close. It was a Thursday afternoon and I was sipping weak motel coffee while sorting through another stack of paperwork when my phone buzzed with a text. Call me. Now. Janelle. Janelle and I hadn't spoken much since everything imploded. She was one of those mutual friends, close enough to hear the gossip, smart enough not to take sides. But that message wasn't casual. It had weight behind it. I called her immediately. She didn't waste time. Madeline. I wasn't going to say anything, but I just found out something that made my skin crawl, she said, breath, short voice shaking. I was at a dinner party last night. Greg was there. He was bragging about how he's about to close on the house. He said he got around the legal freeze by transferring it into Emily's name. I didn't speak. Couldn't, she continued. He said something like, if Maddie wants a war, she's gonna lose. It's not her house anymore. The room went still. Emily, my daughter. The girl I raised on my own, comforted through heartbreaks, pushed through college. The same daughter who watched me get kicked out of my own home was helping him steal it. I pressed the phone tighter to my ear. He transferred the title, I whispered. Janelle paused. I don't know if it's done, but he's trying. Through some kind of shell company in Emily's name. He called it a clean transfer, said you'd never see it coming. I ended the call, heart pounding so loud I could hear it in my throat. I opened my laptop and logged into the county's online record system. Nothing. Not yet, but that didn't mean it wasn't happening. Greg wasn't stupid, he was slimy. And slime always found the cracks in the system. I called Tracy. Her voice turned from calm to clipped in seconds. He's trying to move the asset. If he puts it in her name, he thinks he can claim you're no longer entitled. It's fraud, but hard to prove unless we act fast. She contacted the title company handling our original mortgage. By the next morning, we had confirmation Greg had initiated a title transfer request. The recipient, a new LLC registered under Emily's full name. He was using my daughter to erase me from my own property. That cut deeper than anything. I knew Greg was capable of betrayal he'd already shown me. But Emily, I didn't want to believe she'd fall that far. But maybe this was who she really was. She'd chosen him. And now, she was helping him bury me financially, while they played house in the home I built. Tracy filed an emergency injunction with the court. She moved fast, hitting every legal button available. Fraudulent conveyance, breach of fiduciary duty, constructive trust. Her motion included the digital receipts showing Greg had no right to transfer a house under dispute and certainly not through a deceptive shell under Emily's name. It worked. The judge issued a temporary restraining order on all transactions related to the property until our court hearing. Everything froze. Greg was officially boxed in. That night, I stood in the motel parking lot under a broken light phone in hand, staring at the text I had written and rewritten a dozen times. I raised you better than this. But I didn't send it, because she didn't care. And I wasn't going to waste another second trying to save someone who'd already chosen to betray me. Greg thought using Emily would give him leverage. He thought hiding behind her would make me back down. What he didn't realize was that every move he made was just tightening the noose around his own neck. I wasn't just fighting for a house anymore. I was fighting to bury every lie, every trick, every false smile they'd ever used to manipulate me. And I wasn't done digging. The injunction was just the first strike. By the time the judge signed it, Greg's smug little sales scam was dead in the water. The court froze any transfer activity on the property and ordered both parties to provide full financial disclosures. Tracy called it a win. I called it a warning shot. But a warning wasn't enough. I wanted proof. I wanted blood. I wanted the truth laid out in court so clearly that even Emily, blinded by whatever twisted spell Greg had cast on her, couldn't deny what he was. That's when Tracy suggested we bring in a forensic accountant. His name was Marcus Cho. XIRS eyes, like a hawk, and a voice like dry toast. He didn't say much, just nodded, took the files, and promised to let the math talk. And oh, it did. Greg had been moving money around, like a street hustler with 3 cups and a ball. Accounts in his name, in the name of his so-called consulting firm, and even 2 offshore savings accounts registered to a Wyoming LLC one I'd never even heard of. All while filing joint tax returns with me like everything was squeaky clean. It got worse. Greg hadn't paid federal taxes in 2 years. His consulting income was a revolving door of cash from unnamed sources, none of it matching what we reported. The man was living large on borrowed time, hiding his debts behind shell accounts and my clean name. His entire financial life is a house of cards, Marcus told us, flipping through spreadsheets. And he's been using your assets, your home, your credit, your good reputation to keep the illusion alive. Tracy's eyes sparkled with quiet fire. This isn't just divorce territory anymore, she said. It's criminal. We documented everything. Tracy compiled a full evidentiary packet, fraudulent attempts to transfer the house, misrepresentation of joint assets, tax evasion, and misuse of marital funds. Marcus wrote an expert report that outlined every inconsistency, every lie, every missing dollar. Greg thought he was playing chess. I was preparing to flip the board. Meanwhile, Emily still hadn't reached out. Not after the court freeze. Not even when her name popped up in the legal filings. Part of me hoped she'd come to her senses, realize she was in way over her head. She didn't. That was all I needed to know. A few days later, Tracy served Greg with the full legal complaint, now amended to include fraud, asset concealment, and financial misconduct. His lawyer, Peter, called Tracy and asked very casually if we'd be open to mediation. Tracy laughed. Sure, we'll mediate. In court. We set a court date. Greg's face would be seen. His finances would be exposed. And every sordid little trick he pulled behind closed doors would be dragged into the light. He thought I was weak because I left without screaming. He thought I was done because I didn't fight back immediately. He thought I would fold, disappear, let him and my daughter pretend I never existed. But what he didn't understand, and never would, was that I don't scream when I'm angry. I plan, and now I had the weapon to bring it all down, the truth in black and white, signed by a man who made a career uncovering financial lies. Greg wasn't just going to lose the house. He was going to lose everything. Court was set for a Monday morning. I wore navy blue, powerful calm. Tracy told me once, judges don't just listen to words, they read your face, your posture. Let him act like it's a soap opera. You be the truth." Greg arrived in his favorite tailored suit, sunglasses on, inside the courthouse with that same cocky walk he used the day he kicked me out. Emily trailed behind him, trying hard not to meet my eyes. Her expression was unreadable. Blank, almost. Like she knew something was about to blow, but wasn't sure how deep she was in. Peter Gregg's slick lawyer strutted in. Like he owned the place. He was confident. Too confident. When the judge entered, I felt a strange calm come over me, like I'd already won. I didn't speak. I didn't move. I just watched. Gregg took the stand first, smiling like he was on a talk show. "Your Honor," he said smoothly, "this entire thing is a misunderstanding. My wife, ex-wife, I should say, was dealing with emotional issues. I tried to help her, but she became erratic, controlling. She left the home voluntarily." My jaw tightened. I said nothing. "And the house?" the judge asked. Peter interjected. "Legally, Your Honor, Mr. Dalton transferred the property to a holding company purely for tax planning purposes. No malice, no deception." Tracy stood, calm, crisp. "Let's test that, shall we?" She clicked her laptop. The courtroom screen lit up. Exhibit A scanned copy of our marriage deed. My name listed first. Exhibit B, a bank transfer receipt, $120 for my mother's estate. Exhibit C, emails between Gregg and his realtor, discussing how to move the title quietly and leave Madeline out of it. Gregg's smirk started to fade. Then came Exhibit D, screenshots of the messages I found that day. From his phone, texts to my daughter, explicit, time-stamped, location tagged. He didn't even bother to delete the metadata. The courtroom fell silent. The judge raised an eyebrow. "These are real, verified," Tracy replied. Digital forensics confirmed their authenticity. Peter shifted in his chair, but Tracy wasn't finished. "We also have a forensic report indicating Mr. Dalton has concealed over $200,000 in income and failed to report multiple offshore accounts. That's federal fraud." Now, Gregg's smile vanished entirely. But the final blow, that came when Tracy turned to the judge and said, "Your Honor, we've also subpoenaed Emily Carr, Madeline's daughter, and Mr. Dalton's stepdaughter, whose name was used to obscure the fraudulent transfer. She's here today." Emily looked like a deer in headlights. The judge called her forward. She took the stand, trembling. She glanced at me once. I didn't nod. I didn't glare. I just waited. Under oath, her voice cracked. "Gregg told me it was just paperwork," she said. "That it would protect the house. That Mom didn't want it anymore." "Did you know you were signing documents that would remove your mother's legal ownership?" Tracy asked. Emily swallowed hard. I didn't read everything. I just trusted him." "And the relationship between you and Mr. Dalton?" Tracy asked. Peter objected. The judge allowed it. "Answer the question." Emily broke. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered, "It started before they separated. I thought he loved me, but he used me." "I see that now." Gasps echoed through the room. Gregg's face turned ghost white. The judge leaned forward. "That's all I needed to hear." Court adjourned. No one spoke. As we walked out, Tracy leaned over and whispered, "That was checkmate." The final ruling came a week later. I didn't dress up for that hearing. No Navy power suit, no silk scarf. Just a clean blouse, slacks, and the calm satisfaction of a woman who'd already won. Gregg showed up in the same suit he always wore when he was trying too hard. Emily didn't show at all. Can't say I blamed her. The courtroom was quieter this time. The air had that heavy stillness, like everyone was waiting for the final blow to drop. The judge didn't waste words. After reviewing all evidence and testimony, he began this court. Finds in favor of the plaintiff, Madeline Dalton. Gregg shifted arms, crossed, jaw clenched. The property at 312 Monroe Drive shall be returned to sole ownership of Ms. Dalton, as she provided the majority of financial contribution and was misled about the transfer of title. All fraudulent activity has been documented. The attempted conveyance through a third-party LLC, using the name of her daughter, was conducted without informed consent and is hereby nullified. Greg's face turned crimson. But the judge wasn't finished. In addition to restoring property rights, the court orders Mr. Dalton to pay spousal support for a period of 5 years in the amount of $3,500 per month, as well as all legal fees incurred during the proceedings. He leaned forward, eyes fixed on Greg. Furthermore, due to evidence of perjury during testimony and attempts to defraud the court through financial misrepresentation, this matter is being referred to the district attorney's office for criminal review. I heard it then, Greg's composure cracking like glass under pressure. He opened his mouth to protest, but his lawyer placed a hand on his shoulder, whispering something I didn't need to hear. The fight was over. His game had collapsed. As we walked out of the courtroom, reporters were already gathered. Someone must have leaked the story, likely Peter trying to spin it before the charges hit. Flashbulbs, microphones, questions. Mrs. Dalton, any comments? I didn't stop. I didn't need to, but Tracy did. Justice was served, she said calmly. And you can quote me on that. The story broke the next morning. Local consultant accused of defrauding wife and stepdaughter in shocking legal twist. It made the front page of our town's small newspaper and got picked up by a few online tabloids. The internet did what it does best. It dug up every photo, every post, every lie. Greg's business tanked overnight. Clients disappeared. His license was flagged. By Friday, the IRS had reopened an investigation into his back taxes. And when his name hit the DA's radar, the fraud charge became official. Emily didn't reach out. But I heard from my sister, who ran into her at a pharmacy. Said she looked hollow, drained, avoiding eye contact with anyone who recognized her. Greg had apparently moved into a cheap apartment out of town. Emily stayed behind, but the friends who once buzzed around her like bees had vanished. She was toxic now, poisoned by association. And I walked back into that house on Monroe Drive, like a queen returning to her castle. I changed the locks, repainted the bedroom, reclaimed my kitchen. The silence was different now, stronger. Mine. Greg lost everything he tried to steal. His name, his home, his reputation. Emily, she lost more. Trust, family, me. In the end, they got exactly what they gave, and I got the most priceless thing of all, vindication. It's funny how a house can feel haunted without a single ghost. The first few days back in my home were strange. Every creak in the floor, every silent corner carried memories, some warm, many bitter. The bedroom smelled like a past I didn't want, so I gutted it. New paint, new floors, new furniture. I took down every photo, every trace of us, and replaced it with mirrors, plants, and art that made me feel alive again. It was quiet, but not lonely. For the first time in years, the air was clear. No secrets, no lies. Just me, my coffee in the mornings, and peace. I didn't try to replace what I'd lost. Instead, I decided to rebuild from a different blueprint. One evening, I was at a local bookstore flipping through a self-help title that felt more like a bandage than a balm when I overheard two women talking. One was crying divorced after 25 years, blindsided by her husband and her own sister. The other nodded with the kind of exhaustion only betrayal could breed. It sparked something in me. By the following month, I rented a small room in the community center and launched a weekly circle called Second Act Sisters. It started with 5 women, then 10, then 30, stories like mine and worse, women discarded, overlooked, deceived by those who once called them family. But in that circle, we weren't victims. We were architects of our own comebacks. I told them everything, not for pity, but to show them the fire still burns after 50, and that you can rise, not despite betrayal, but because of it. Word spread fast. A blogger came to one of our sessions, wrote a feature. A podcast followed. Then a producer from a daytime talk show reached out after reading a viral excerpt from my upcoming memoir. Yes, I wrote it. House of Cards. How I took down my husband, my daughter, and their lies. Debuted on a modest online platform and exploded within weeks. Reviews called it raw, devastating, empowering. I was invited to panels, interviews, and women's conferences. I spoke not just about legal revenge, but about emotional resilience, financial independence, the quiet strength of starting over at 51. And Greg, last? I heard he was living in a one-bedroom apartment above a pawn shop in another town, scrounging up consulting gigs for half the rate he used to brag about. His name was dirt in the business world. The fraud case ruined his credibility. The divorce cleaned out his bank account. He tried to call once, left a voicemail saying he wanted to talk, that he missed the way things were. I blocked his number. Emily tried to. Sent me a long, tear-filled email about how sorry she was, how Greg manipulated her, how she was so young and stupid. Said she wanted to fix us. I stared at the screen for a long time before responding. Some wounds, I wrote, aren't meant to be reopened. I wish you healing. But I've already found mine. I haven't heard from her since. And that's okay, because not every chapter ends with reunion. Some end with release. Today I sit on the porch of the home I bought, sipping tea, watching the wind dance through the trees. I no longer look back with anger. Just clarity. I lost a husband. I lost a daughter. But I found my voice. I found my strength, and I found something far more valuable than either of them ever gave me. I found myself.